Welcome to episode. Welcome to episode. Is it 3? Is it 4? I've done a lot of videos in the last couple days, but for me, I should say, a lot of videos for me. But I think we're on episode 3. No, 2. No, 3 of the winter maintenance / engine refresh. So I think the first episode technically accounted here is going to be the one where I did the analysis of the engine, the leak down test, all that kind of stuff. The second episode would have been tearing down the engine. I kind of consider the engine dropping thing as its own thing. And then this is going to be the third. So we did the tear down and investigation video. So this is going to be where we start getting into what we're doing. So in this video, we're going to do a couple different things. One, we're going to be putting the new valve seals in and cleaning up the cylinder heads. And the second is we're going to do some preliminary stuff about some changes to the engine block, like we're changing, or I should say some upgrades, if you will. We're going to get started on those and kind of talk through those. This video won't be the main one of them, but we'll get started on them. One being like putting this engine oil plate on the engine and kind of talk through all that kind of stuff and talk through some upgrades. So to get started, because we have some timing related stuff, I'm going to get started over here on the cylinder heads and show you what I've been kind of playing around with and what I'm doing going forward. All right, so if you recall, I'll throw some video up on the screen, but the cylinder heads were very caked in oil. There was a lot of oil, especially here in the ports. There was a shit ton. Let's just be honest. There was a shit ton of oil that was caked on there just from use and oil burn and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things I'm doing here is, since I'm replacing all the valve seals here, and removing the exhaust valves completely, I figured I'd use this opportunity to clean the intakes, or the ports, the exhaust ports here. So you can see that I've gotten them nice and clean for the most part. And I've even gotten the valves clean. So I'll pull the other ones out to give you an idea of what they looked like. But essentially, I tried a whole bunch of different things. I tried soaking them in degreaser. I tried soaking them in chemical dip, carburetor parts cleaner, and I tried soaking them in like brake clean / carburetor cleaner, just the stuff you spray in a bottle. Honestly, what I found most effective by far was Simple Green. So Simple Green is bad for aluminum, so don't soak cylinder heads in it. It's okay from what I've experienced personally and read for a couple minutes, like spray it on, scrub it, rinse it right off. For cylinder heads or aluminum in general, I'm not going to clean the cylinder heads with Simple Green, but these stainless steel and super alloy valves, it's perfect for. I soak them in there what I do is I put them in at night. I get up in the morning, I take them out and I clean them. So what I did to get these all nice and shiny, I mean, they came right back. And when I take these out and show you, you'll be surprised. So what I did is I just pulled them out, put them in there, left them in there overnight, got up, and then came over here to my fancy schmancy wire wheel and just cleaned them off. This is very light cleaning. Honestly, I just put I'll show you when we get deeper into the video, but I just put the valve in the drill, spun it, and put it up against here and cleaned it right off. It was really, really effective. Worked great. So the majority of work so far has really been on cleaning the heads, and specifically the combustion chambers here. So you can see we have a lot of oil burn up in here, and then you can see how these exhaust valves are all caked with really, really hard carbon composites and stuff. And these ones I have not removed yet, so when I pop them off, you'll be able to see inside the port, and you'll be able to see close up what kind of grime we're dealing with. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to do that. All right, so what we have here is a nice little spring compressor. So if you're familiar with spring compressors for the Coyote, there are two options. There's this option, and then there's the one that's Freedom Racing, as I think who sells it. MMR also sells their own rebranded version of it. But needless to say, that one's really expensive. It's a couple $100. And it doesn't really look that usable, or I shouldn't say that usable, but it's just not worth that kind of money. They're just the only ones who sell it, I think, which is why they get away with that price. Fortunately, this is brand new from what I've seen. I mean, when I did my engine rebuild last year, this was not on the market. So this guy's brand new. It's from Euro Export. I'll send the links over to you guys in the description of this video. But I think I spent about $100, maybe a little less on it. And it's just as effective from what I can tell. So it's just a CNC plate here that bolts down to your mains in 2 spots. You know, you move it here and then, or you do here first and then you slide it down and you do it here second. And you have 4, without having to bolt, move it, you can work with 4 valves that, within the same bolt. Or this is really hard, really not coming out, eloquently. But essentially, once you bolt it down, you can take 4 valves out. We'll go with that. So what you have this little guy here that you slide over your valve, and then you just tighten this bolt down, and it pushes this this little part here down onto your valve. And once you got everything set up, you want to make sure that the part that's open here is facing an area you can get the magnet in to get the keepers out. But essentially, you just get the valve down. Boom, keepers out. Pull this back up, move it to the next one. Drop it, of course. As you can see, it's a bit fidgety, if you will. It's in the sense of, you got to play with a lot of things. You got to move this down each side or each hole, etc., etc. But that's not really any different than the other one out on the market, and this one's much cheaper. And in my opinion, it's easier to use, I think, because you just throw this on here and then you just sink the bolt down. Where the other one, you got to make sure you align the little arm correctly on the top. It's just a little more fidgety out of the two, I think. And so this one's simpler and cheaper. But just for the curious, here are the tops of the retainers for these are the little titanium retainers here. I'm very impressed with them. The wear on them looks fantastic. There's a little bit of wear, but nothing I'm concerned of. This is another thing I really enjoy. If you look here at, let's see if I can get this a good angle for you. But if you look, right here at the spring, this Pack Racing spring, it's machined flat all the way around. Where, I'll see if I can dig up some video of the previous one I ran from, the OEM Ford one that I was running before. Not nearly as much flat spot here, so that's good, because that's a good indicator that things are stronger. The other thing too, just for we're going to be going a little above my pay grade here on understanding of race engine development and stuff like that, but we have quite a few washers to set the spring preload, or tension, I think it might be called. But we have quite the spacer here. Some of them have 3, some of them have 4, so definitely set on each individual valve. So especially in my case, it's important for every case, but especially in my case, because this head was machined and it was professionally set up, that it's going to be very important to make sure that the right spring with the right keeper, or retainer with the right washers, sit on the right valve, and all that kind of stuff. So it's very important to keep everything. So as you can see, I have everything in a nice line here. This just gets picked up, put right back in. I'm not pulling these ones out yet because I'm doing all the exhaust valves in a row here, just because I'm doing the cleaning and stuff on the valves, and I'll do some lapping and stuff like that just to make sure we got good seating surface. And that's only because there was so much oil residue due to how much oil was burning there at the the last few race hours. So I'm going the extra mile, and then once I've done all the exhaust ones, I'll go in and jump over to the intake, because those should be as simple as just, pull the spring off, pull the retainer off, drop back in. I don't plan to remove the valves from the intake side. All right, jumped ahead a little bit just to get us done, and we can take a look. So you can see this is after I've done heavy cleaning inside. This one actually gives you a much better view. So you see that this part right here, the whole port was covered in that. So I went ahead and I cleaned those out with brake clean. Really simple way to do it is just fill the exhaust port here with brake clean, let it sit in there, and then this stuff just starts to peel right up. And as you can see, it's just falling right off. So all I have to do is stick a wire wheel on a Dremel or just a brush in there and just scrape the rest of it out, and it'll, you know, it should come right out. As far as the exhaust valves, so you can see here how much on the rear is coated. So you might be one of those people that is like, why are you going through all this effort? It's just going to get recoated, and that is very true. But my hope or my desire here is just to make sure we have a really good seal on the valve seat here, as well as just, I mean, while we have everything apart and I have the time while I'm waiting on the, you know, the oil pickup tube and stuff to get figured out, might as well, right? What could go wrong? So, as I mentioned before, Simple Green here, I have it diluted about 50-50 if I recall correctly. And I just leave it, you know, if you only let it sit in here for a few minutes at a time, at least for me, it didn't do any good. It wasn't until I sat in here, you know, most of the night, or I should say most of a day, and then I brought them out, and the stuff was so loose that it was just coming right off, you know. Simple Green is really effective on carbon, so keep that in mind. I mean, look at the difference here. This is the difference on the valves. They're so much nicer and cleaner. They're coated in WD-40 right now. But so yeah, next up we have to do is just flip this head upside down and, you know, do our best to clean these ports up and, you know, get them all looking like the other side over here. Yeah, look at this. It's just peeling right off. Like I mentioned, this will be a super easy job now that everything's loosened up. So to get the faces, you know, the faces of the tops of the combustion chambers here cleaned up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it upside down and then spray it with some degreaser, some engine degreaser, and just kind of let it sit for a little while, you know, 5-10 minutes, and then I'll go at it with what I've been using that's been really effective for me is a little brass brush here on the end of a Dremel, spinning at a low speed, maybe 10,000 RPM, and just very gently going over everything. And then I just use brake clean to clean everything off and you know, get everything nice and clean. And then once I've gone through and done all this, and once all the cleaning is done on both cylinder heads and all that kind of stuff, I'll actually give them a proper cleaning where, you know, we clean the whole cylinder head, you know, get all the debris and all the junk out of it, or off the side of it here, so it's nice and, you know, nice and clean and good to work with. And then we'll go ahead and start putting the valves all back together. As I mentioned, when on the other side, when I popped a couple of these valves loose just to see what they looked like, you know, the intake ports are very clean. The valve seats are really good on everything. So the only thing that's a little dirty here is obviously the face, just because of the, you know, when combustion's happening. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean the face off, leave these, and then as I mentioned before, I'll, you know, drop the cylinder head back down, and I'll just replace I don't plan to take the valves out. I'll just replace the valve seals. And then just for a little bit of background, this is one of the OEM valve seals. I had to, while I'm waiting for my tool to come in, I did have to kind of monkey it up a little bit with some needle nose. But as far as I'm able to tell, this is an OEM valve seal. So I'm not entirely sure why so many of them have allowed so much oil burn to get, you know, past them. If you're wondering how I'm sure it's getting past the valves, this is just a reminder that oil was literally pooling up on top of the valves inside the ports. So the only way oil's getting in there is if it's coming through the valve seal or the guides. The guides look very good. There's no indication of any wear on them. And these definitely aren't as tight when I played around with, you know, putting one of these on versus a new one. You can definitely feel the new ones were tighter. So these are either my original ones and they were reused, which would be very, very unfortunate, or for whatever reason I had premature wear. Maybe, you know, the first time the car fired, it put too much, you know, there was too much friction and not enough lubrication. I don't know. Either way, when we go to reassemble everything, we're using brand new valve seals, and we're going to be assembly lubing the crap out of them. All right, so that's going to do it for tonight while I wait for these to soak and, you know, loosen up the carbon deposits. I'll be right back at you with you in the morning. We'll go ahead and we'll get, you know, finish getting those cleaned up, get the head cleaned up, You know, and we'll do some very quick lapping here of the valves just to make sure we have a really good seat where all that oil is, or those carbon deposits were, and then we'll jump in and start looking at some of the stuff on the block. All right, guys, next morning here. So I'm getting started by cleaning off the combustion chamber and just the last part of the ports here. So you can see I've already cleaned the inside of these ports. Now just gonna go ahead and do these last bits. So you can see looking closely here that this stuff's just peeling off. It's really, really soft. It's not even really connected. So to get this off, the first thing I'm doing is I'm just going in here with the wire wheel, and then I add a little bit of brake clean to clean it off, and then go back in and just finish up with the wire wheel. So just a little demonstration. All right, now that we got the ports cleaned up, it's time to clean up the combustion chamber here a little bit. So I just have a little brush here on the end of the Dremel. This one, rather than cleaning on the sides, cleans so it allows me to get much better up here, coming straight at it. All right, so our valves have been soaking here for about a day, a little less than. The stuff is nice and loose now and ready to come off. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the drill here. All right, now that we got this all cleaned off, dried off, all that good stuff, we're gonna go ahead and reassemble everything. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the new valve seals here on top of the valve guides. And recommendation per the service manual is to put some oil inside the guides themselves and then coat the seals and put those on top of the valve guides. So I just soak the seals inside oil, just makes it easier. And then because I'm an idiot and I don't have the little, I lost my little oil dispenser canister thing, I'm using bendy straw, which works pretty decent actually. All right, and then to tap the seals into place, you can buy a pretty expensive little tool that does it for you, or you can just get an 18mm socket. All right, now that we have that all done, we can go ahead and start putting the washers, springs, and retainers back on. Make sure to put the right ones back on the right valves. And then this will be up to, you know, kind of your own taste. But I prefer to put the keepers in before I compress the springs. That way they're already down in the general area, and I just need to align them onto the valves. So it's going to be really hard to see, I think, for you guys, but I'm going to go down a little more. Then all it's got to do is all right, and then once you got it on like that, I make sure it sets by hand, just as long as it goes inside the retainer. And then once I'm sure, pop it up like that. All right, that's all we got to do. So now I just got to do it to 16 more valves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish doing it for the exhaust side here. And then for the intake side, it's really, basically I'm just doing what I just did in reverse and then again. So I'll come over here, take the keepers out, pull everything off, get access to the valve seal, pop it off, pop the new one on, and then reassemble. So it's the exact same thing I just did, nothing new. The only thing I'll say that's different, at least for me on this engine, is the intake side is taller, so it's closer to the top here, and there's a little bit more finagling I have to do to get everything aligned. But other than that, I should say the spacing's just tighter, is I guess a better way to describe it. So it takes a little bit more monkey work to, you know, getting everything aligned. But other than that, it's exactly the same. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up on a stand and just time lapse this, because it's, you know, it's boring to watch and there's nothing new that, or nothing crazy I'm doing. Everyone's exactly the same. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that going. All right, we are in good shape. So now that cylinder head over there is done, and now this one is done, so we're all good to go on the cylinder heads. The valves have been cleaned, the exhaust valve port, or the exhaust ports have been cleaned and, you know, decarboned, if you will. All the valve seals have been changed. Everything's good to go on these guys. These guys are ready to bolt back onto the block. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it here. The cylinder heads ended up taking a little bit longer than expected, so I think we're going to, cut this video here and then save the oil updates or oil system updates, the cooling system updates, and radiator ducting and all that good stuff for the next video. Hopefully, we'll hear back about the Ford Performance oil pickup tube soon, so we can figure out what we want to do there, and then go ahead and get started on reassembling this this short block into a long block. Until then, I hope to hear from you guys on Instagram or in the comments or anything like that if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help. All right, catch you guys later. Have a good one.